whichever way you look at it, this World Cup has been built on the exploitation of hundreds of thousands of low-wage workers. So I was in Qatar earlier this year. I found workers who were all in debt because they'd been forced to pay illegal fees for their jobs. They were mostly earning very low wages, the equivalent of about £1 an hour. And all of them, until very recently, were subject to a system called kafala. Kafala is a system under which workers are unable to change their jobs without their employer's permission. The vast majority of these migrant workers are low-wage workers who come from some of the poorest countries in the region. And these are the workers who have really built the World Cup for Qatar. Their working conditions would be very harsh, very long hours often. And in Qatar, the summer heat is extreme. They could be on duty for 8 or 12 hours in incredibly oppressive, humid climate. I interviewed workers who are employed on looking after the grounds, the landscaping around the World Cup stadiums. And when I got to their accommodation, I was shocked. They were basically living in huts or cabins, very crammed. In some, 4 workers were sharing a room. In some, 6 workers were in there. They were dirty, they were cramped, their belongings were just shoved under the bed, and their clothes were hung across strings on the wall. The Qatari authorities claim reforms have taken place, major changes have happened. There'll be a lasting legacy of better workers' rights in the region.
The Qatar authorities have genuinely achieved real advances. However, the actual situation of workers in Qatar does remain really worrying.
The main reforms they brought in just in the last few years are the introduction of a minimum wage and the abolition of the kafala system. The fact of the matter is these reforms have come too little too late. They were enforced 10 years after Qatar was awarded the right to host the World Cup, after almost all the stadiums were completed and after almost all the infrastructure was in place.
It took so long for these reforms to be introduced, and in the meantime a lot of abuses and suffering happened from migrant workers, being those who lost their lives, those who were injured, those who were not paid, those who paid recruitment fees. So for 10 years there's been these abuses ongoing and no compensation or remedy has been provided.
There is a growing momentum from the football community that we need to speak up on these issues because they matter.
These migrant workers who have suffered are not just numbers. Like the migrants that have shaped our country and our football, they possess the same courage and determination to build a better life.
FIFA has stayed very quiet about migrant rights for the last 10 years, and it has essentially fallen in line directly with the Qataris, arguing that significant reforms have occurred.
FIFA remains in positive ongoing dialogue over initiatives that will benefit migrant workers in Qatar long after the final game of the World Cup.
As far as I'm aware, there was no due diligence done during the awarding of the World Cup on human rights and migrant workers' rights in Qatar. Now, some improvements have been made. Some workers are living in better accommodation. Some workers are enjoying better terms and conditions. But the fact that, I could so easily find these abusive conditions on the eve of the World Cup, just months away from when this tournament begins, suggests there's a real gap in the progress